Welcome to the Make the Movie Already podcast. This podcast is for you otherwise busy creatives who can't seem to find the time to finish or start your passion project. Join me, Maria Rios, your friendly, frustrated filmmaker, on this journey, however long it takes to get it done. Welcome again to episode 7. Wow. Yay. I'm excited about that. And actually, I'm even more excited to tell you that in this episode, we will be discussing pre-production, specifically research and story development. So I'm super excited to get started. And today we are on our way to making our first film. So with that, I'll leave it alone and let's get to it. You know, I'm pretty excited about this particular podcast episode because I'll have you know that I am burning the midnight oil right now as we speak because I'm actually working on my documentary project. Last week, I challenged myself on the podcast that I would choose one thing to further my project, my documentary project. After all, this podcast is called Make the Movie Already. And I've spent quite a few episodes on the creative process and on overcoming barriers and essentially setting myself up to get the real work done and give myself space to kind of figure out how I'm going to really tackle what I have to say moving forward. So right now, I am in a research phase. So I've decided to dig into the directing the documentary book. I think it's a textbook by Michael Raybiger. I think that's how you pronounce his name. And I have an early edition of it, maybe a 4th edition of it, something like this. And I'm working from chapter 11, developing story ideas, and chapter 15, initial research and draft proposal. I'll say that again. Oh man, my pronunciation gets worse. And worse the later it gets, so forgive me there. But chapter 15, initial research and draft proposal. All right. So I am taking from this particular book because I find it to be excellent, actually. I find it to be excellent at this stage of my filmmaking journey. I actually bought this book years ago when it was a new edition, and now I feel like I've done the work really to be able to understand how to tackle the challenges or how to use it to tackle my challenges. So I'm excited about this. It's a great book and I do recommend it. So the reason I'm starting with these 2 chapters is because, as I may have mentioned in probably every single one of my previous episodes of this podcast, one of the struggles I've had was, as a filmmaker, working on this particular, my first, real, documentary, is that I shot first without a real understanding of how to construct a documentary story. And it's interesting that in the course of my filmmaking education, that it wasn't really easy for me to bridge narrative story techniques to documentary for whatever reason. Actually, I do have a reason. I have a reason. It's because how I envision documentaries. I was kind of trapped in how I perceived my aesthetic approach. In other words, in my mind, I had a particular vision of how I wanted my documentary to be. And I wanted it to be a slow camera kind of a of an aesthetic. So my camera would rest on the subject, and by virtue of that, filming of trees and filming my subject at events or filming the kitchen table, whatever, just these long shots I could envision in my head that would, automatically tell this story. It would automatically convey the depth of what I saw or what I see in my subject. And that would automatically make it a movie, and that's not a good approach. It's just not. And so I had to kind of figure out how to tease all of that out and just essentially understand the basics of storytelling first. And so how do I take the basics of storytelling and apply that to documentary filmmaking? And so I believe, I know Mr. Ray Bigger here can help me with this. So here's what he says. Let me find it. I think this is a good illustration to start with. The thought and planning you invest before shooting and how thoroughly you anticipate problems go far to ensure a successful and trouble-free shoot. Most importantly, they help ensure that the movie is a coherent entity, directing a documentary contrary to the impression of spontaneous auteurism, is always founded to some degree in preliminary conclusions reached during research. Depending on the kind of film you are making, this may mean that shooting is largely collecting evidence for underlying patterns and relationships already identified. Or, in less controlled situations, it is a solid preparation for what is normal, so that when an atypical event begins, you can react immediately to developments that would otherwise pass you by. So that paragraph is powerful for me because it clearly illustrates where I went wrong in my approach to the film that I'm stuck on. So number one, I went in with a set of questions that I thought would be enough to construct a story. And then I spent the rest of the time gathering footage, trying to follow my subject, and which was important for me in learning about the subject and how she operated in the world and the kinds of things she was doing. But it didn't tie directly back to the questions. It didn't tie to anything. What resulted was me having piles of footage and no story that I could really put together in a coherent way. And then to begin with, an aesthetic based on the questions that I had asked actually was leading me into a creative direction with the film that I really didn't want to go. I could conceivably end up with a film, but it'd be more talking head type of a film, and I didn't want to do that. So I didn't understand how to tell like a story that would be more impactful and more illustrative and less didactic, like more emotional, less this is who this person is and this is why these people say she's fabulous and, add her name to the canon and let's move on. The paragraph also helps me understand another issue that I had that is a little bit sneaky, but I don't think and I guess this is an experience speaking here, really, but I know that documentaries are certainly less controlled situations, as Ray Bigger says they're less controlled situations than narrative filmmaking. But sometimes, particularly if you're new, I find that I missed truly appreciating that fact and what can happen when you're actually shooting and what you can miss if you don't do enough pre-planning. Certainly you can't control the outcome of a situation when it comes to documentary filmmaking. I mean, you can if you come in with enough research and you have a tight enough project. But for my purposes, I was leaving too much room, too much wiggle room for my intention for the project. So I wasn't capturing enough that fell into a structure or a theme. It just didn't connect the dots enough. I didn't leave enough room for myself to connect the dots while I was shooting. That's important. So with every opportunity, with every shoot that you have is an opportunity to find nuance and threads and ways to deepen the story that you're trying to tell. And so when I was shooting my particular project, for example, I would come back and would have that pile of footage that I couldn't, connect. But I also started to see things in the footage that I really wanted to explore and that would be useful towards like characterization, right? Developing my characters, for example. But then I had these questions like, well, who are my characters? And what specifically is important to show about these characters that would help the audience do? And then I go off into blanks, right? And so I think this paragraph, and this chapter, the pre-production chapter, is critical for me to spend some time on. Yes, indeed. Research is exactly where I need to be, and research, or the research goals as defined by Ray Bigger, will, I think, answer all the questions that have kind of stymied me so far, or at least certainly get me on the right footing to advance. And so the purpose of research is a 10-item bullet list according to what I'm reading here. And so I won't go through all of them, but 4 are salient to me in terms of just really getting to the core of what's missing in my current project. And I will kind of read them in order of importance. So here I go. So deciding what the ultimate purpose of making the film should be. Developing a proposal indicating intended content, theme, and style so that you can try out your ideas on other people and raise funds or other support. And actually, in my case, just tell the story. Just, let that be my true north moving forward. Communicating your motivations and purposes for making a film, and getting to know the whole scene so that you can narrow down to what is significant. There's more here, but I think these 4 bullets just jump out at me. And so I am going to set off to see where I land after following his recommendations. Now, the rest of the chapter goes on to provide an extensive outline for research. So if I'm looking through it and I'm thinking, I've done some of these things already, so I will take some time to actually go through the list and start to select what I need to focus on to share with you so that I'm communicating an actionable list of steps that I can share with you, and that will provide me with the foundation I need to start producing, to actually start getting behind the camera again. But I'm a little bit far from that. I'm closer actually than I think that I am. But I think I need to leave myself a little room to really get to where I feel like I am confident in being able to communicate a point of view, themes, a beginning, middle, and end, why I think this film is important, and how I can start thinking on how to make this a good experience for the audience. One that they will appreciate, one that definitely isn't structured on talking heads. Okay. I think it might be a good time to start closing the conversation for today. And I think I've actually had some breakthroughs. I now realize that it would be really helpful for me to dive into this research chapter and actually developing the story ideas chapter and spend enough time until I come out of here with a story. These two chapters, I just haven't really spent enough time on them in the entirety of the education that I've had. So this is new information for me. This is really new information for me. Not commonsensical. So, not commonsensical information for me. So anyway, here's what we're gonna do. I'm super excited because I'm starting to see a finished project just based on delving a little deeper into what it means to do research for a documentary and what it means to develop a story for documentary. And it's been helpful to have at least one resource that speaks to me as a filmmaker. And Ray Bigger definitely does that. It's like in every other sentence, it's like either I've identified being there or not being there and why. Like understanding exactly what he's illustrating. And so, I think Ray Bigger really illustrates his points in a way that really resonates with me, because I've been there. He's describing scenarios where I've certainly been there, but haven't asked these 30 million questions. So I'm feeling good about this. So what this tells me is that I need to spend more time writing at the end of the day. Getting to that proposal, getting to that outline, really being able to articulate this project in a 3-act structure kind of a way, and be able to speak directly to theme. I'm repeating myself a little bit, but I thought this was impossible before right this minute. Not 100% impossible, but this was an issue that was really plaguing me, and I couldn't by myself get to the other side, and I wasn't asking the right questions, and I really needed some sort of a hint. And these two chapters, this book has definitely been that for me. So yay, I'm excited about moving forward. I'm going to go ahead and end now. Next steps for me are figuring out how to communicate my progress moving forward in a way that's instructional and useful to both my podcast audience, all two of us, and my own project. And I also have some project-specific, filmmaking-specific tasks to do here, related specifically to research and developing story ideas. So I anticipate that will be where our conversation will take us for the next few weeks. Maybe I may have a kind of production-oriented episode to break it up depending on where I am with the project, or actually in consideration to you, because I think from here on out, you will start to get a sense of what it's like. I'm going to start to really delve into what it's like to kind of solve these filmmaker challenges that I've had. So we're getting into the making the movie part. We're going to be making a movie together. So I'm super excited. Anyway, I'm going to stop babbling. I'm going to go ahead and take the opportunity to say goodbye for real this time. Everyone stay happy, stay healthy, stay creative. Please check me out on socials if you can find me. So I'm at Make the Movie Already on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. And actually, this podcast is both on Anchor and on YouTube. Make the Movie Already. So I am super excited moving forward. I'm going to start to babble again. So until next time, take care, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.